So, welcome back to the Borealis Show. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really missed doing the show. It's been 2 weeks now that I was not here, and I'm very happy to be here with Jason today, my sweetheart. And we will talk about really juicy topics again. Today we will have the money talk. Talk about money, especially debt, and how powerful the control money has in our lives, and how it can build relationships, it can destroy relationships and friendships, it can make you feel really good about yourself, and it can make you feel very powerless and bad about yourself. I talked about money and money issues with a couple of friends recently. I have some very dear friends who are studying at the university here in Canada, and it's really hard for me to see how much they struggle, not only the mental side of studying, but then also having to worry about bills, and then especially when you graduate, having to worry about how you pay back your loan. It's really hard for me to understand why the system is built that way. I find it sets up the students and my dear friends with a lot of stress when they want to start their life and their career. And where I come from in Germany, most of the classes, studies are for free. So, yeah. And then I had a talk with a friend yesterday, and she recently had a money talk with her fiance, and it's been a very ugly talk because she came from a job where she earned $70,000 a year, and now she decided to freelance, and she's only making $26,000 a year. Her fiance is making the big bucks now, and for her it's very hard to realize that she is more of a housewife now, and she has to adjust to that change, and she likes that role, but it made her feel very uncomfortable in the beginning. And I know there's women out there who from the start would feel comfortable in having the role distribution like that, but there's some couples where it has to be talked about, and that's very important. And as I learned from Jason, he taught me that our health is based upon 4 pillars. We have the emotional health, we have the mental health, we have the physical health, and also the financial stability or health, let's say, is very critical in how we feel about ourselves and how strong our relationships are, because our relationships are based upon how we feel about ourselves. And if you are the guy in the relationship and you identify strongly with being the breadwinner, and then from today to tomorrow you lose your job, then you are thrown into an identity crisis, and it is not only a money struggle then, but also an emotional or power struggle within the relationship, right? And here in the North American culture, I observed for the last 5 years that at a very young age, people throw themselves into huge debt. And what does it do to a young being who's trying to find a place in society? First of all, it feels as if you belong and as if you have power and you can compete with your neighbor, your siblings, and show off a little bit and maybe even prove to your parents that you are capable of yeah, achieving your goals. But then comes the time where you realize, okay, you are a slave to the bank, basically. You're a slave to your house, your car. And if you are lucky enough, you have a wife or a girlfriend who fuels that spending, consuming mentality. And if you are unlucky, you wake up one day and you realize, oh my God, where's the way out? I don't know how to get out of this, and I have to stick to my job. I have to keep paying these bills, otherwise I'm going to be eaten up. And if you are lucky, you will never wake up, and you will keep doing what you did and pay off your bills and not realize that you are stuck in a vicious cycle of paying bills, making money, and having that burden, that struggle and that burden on your shoulder. So Jason, I want to get you into the conversation now. I know that you also back in the day decided to dive into the money bucket and buy a house. I know that you drive a pretty nice truck that you love and that I enjoy.
Love that truck.
I know, I love it too. I enjoy it a lot, but I also know about you that you had that wake-up call. You realized that these bills are weighing heavy on your chest and you want to get out of it, get rid of it. And maybe you can share what you're experiencing and maybe what you see in your friends or acquaintances or surroundings.
Yeah, so basically kind of with what's going on with me is, and kind of where I had to start making some changes was just that, buying a house, that's obviously one of the biggest purchases that, we will ever make, probably in our lifetime. The weird thing to me was that every time and I've bought a couple houses and things like that, like each time I think there was kind of like a response that was going on that was like, and it was happening in my body, like triggering like a little bit of like anxiety or just kind of anxiousness towards that payment, right, or that purchase, because when you're signing those mortgage papers, all of a sudden you're like, okay, like you're in this for 25 years, right? So a good quarter of your life, and then so you see that, and I mean the banks are gonna loan you the money, no problem, right? Like given what your salary is or whatever, and then from there, you got your vehicle, and I was always kind of, I guess, felt like having a newer vehicle because you'd had that security of having a warranty. You had like perks of getting oil changes done, let's say for free as the first couple of years or whichever. So there were kind of like these perks, but at the same time, it's like then, you're looking at, okay, well, am I going to be able to sustain those payments, right, for the term of whether you're leasing your vehicle or you finance it or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just kind of, got into those things, and then I would look at, where I'm spending money, and it just like I've been in debt. I'm still in some debt, but I'm like, now I'm trying to like get myself out of it and just start to pick away at the things that got me there. Because I mean, I like to go and do things. We like to travel, and I love wanting to do that and be able to do that. Obviously, that comes at a cost, but at the same time, you have to also think of what are you doing with your money in between those things, right? And where, have you set out budgets for yourself or, anything like that to like kind of control what that day-to-day spending looks like?
Yeah.
Because, I think that's where I got into the most trouble, was the daily, you know, and buying groceries or even buying alcohol, right? That kind of stuff. And even where I would consider that I didn't really drink like a huge amount of alcohol. I mean, if you probably added it up though over the month, and then you look like, okay, well maybe I spent like, you know, $150, $200, you know, a month on drinks. Yeah, add that up over a year. Well then, yeah, shit, that's a good little chunk of money, right?
Yeah.
I think it's hard for people to look that far ahead and things like that, and especially when it's something that you've done, or maybe, you know, you're just into that routine. So whether it's like, whether you don't drink during the week or you drink on the weekends with your friends, and you know you're a social drinker like that, it's, you know, you don't want to lose that. I guess there's like that fear of missing out kind of thing. That's where you could actually end up, you go to a party and you don't have to drink. Like, I mean, I have a good friend, his name's Darren, who just started in the new year. He wasn't going to drink and just do like a month thing, right? Like,
he's still doing it?
He's still doing it, yeah. He's still,
Darren, if you watch us, huge respect. Huge respect.
Yeah. And you know, and then when we were reading in a book, and it was talking about how, you know, we can sort of take the things that we want to change in our life, so whether it's like an addiction, or, you know, then that could come from drugs, alcohol, like maybe spending, right? Like these things, where you could say, like Darren it did for, you know, the start of the new year. It was like, I'm going to go the month of January, which for some people that could be a pretty big stretch, but, you know, it's, for most New Year's resolutioners, that's kind of their bread and butter, is they'll say, you know, first month I'll have like a clean month of whatever. So when you do that, it at least, so, you know, as you're working towards that, you know, once you've hit that month, it's almost then like you kind of have that little bit of satisfaction and like achievement, that feeling of gratitude towards yourself for like, yeah, shit, I did it, right? And then it's almost where then your mind starts to, you know, tell you, well, you know, what if I go another week after this month and see what happens, right? And then sure as shit you do it, and then it's like, okay, well, you know, and then when you maybe even think of going for a drink, you're like, well, you know, like that progress that I, you know, made and that stuff, why would I kind of throw it away, right? So it's how you can sort of start to, you know, like rewire your brain and that gratitude and that satisfaction towards, you know, making that change. So yeah, no, it's pretty awesome that he's done that, and I just talked to him the other day on the phone, and yeah, it's cool. So but yeah, that's where I think of, you know, you can take that with like spending, right? So, you know, if you're always out buying pop, you know, and that kind of stuff, right? Or, you know, those things that kind of comfort you, right? It's maybe you need to like set like you know, parameter where you say, I'm not gonna buy any of that for, you know, 2 weeks or whatever, you know, set that little mark and then go from there with it. And then, you know, you can just see like, you know, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I maybe saved $30 or $40 in those 2 weeks. And and I mean, and like say, like I can be bad for spending when it comes to cooking, because, you know, and I've said this on other episodes, I love to cook, and I love to like have those recipes, like every ingredient right down to a T, where all of a sudden you got like this shit pile of stuff in your pantry, right, that's like maybe been used once, and then you know, and it probably goes bad by the time you're ready to use it again. So it's trying to like change the way I eat to like better suit my spending at the grocery store. And even too, when it comes to, I eat a lot of just good organic meat now, because you work at Urban Grocer, so I got a bit of you know, an in there. So and having made that change, I've now also, you know, dialed back like some of the eating, like where I used to eat so much more, like volume, and that was, you know, also I guess because I was doing a lot of training, I was moving a lot, so if you're kind of doing the whole calories in, calorie out kind of thing, that's where I guess that played a part. But now my training's just so different, the way I even look at food and how, you know, I use it, you know, on a daily,
Yeah.
And just how I train my body, I just find that I can really just sustain with, you know, out eating as like these huge meals that I used to, or things like that, and just eat that better quality too in the end. So
Yeah.
and like I say, it's more expensive, but yeah, I made the adjustment so that it's not like breaking the bank, because it's funny, because since I did do that change, I thought like, oh yeah, there's no way I can afford this. It's just gonna pile up, and then yeah, just, you know, now I always see where there's room. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think what we can take away from what Jason just said is, it doesn't matter if it's food or alcohol, any habit that you have that gives you comfort, question it at some point, and then allow yourself some space from it. Yeah? Or even cigarettes, marijuana, sugar. See, don't be too hard on yourself and go cold turkey. I mean, some people, like me, for instance, I have to do it, otherwise I'm not going to succeed. But give yourself a week where you don't use it and see what happens. See if you still crave it as much after this week. See if emotions come up that you were successfully suppressing. Just be a little curious about the habits you have, and when it comes to money, you will be surprised how much you can actually save, and then reallocate. I don't know if you say that. Reallocate and spend on something that might be more sustainable or more, I don't know,
just something
enjoyable.
That's more enjoyable too, like a trip, right? Like what we would do.
Like a trip.
I mean, there's, you know, at the start of this month, you know, we went to a little intentions workshop and setting intentions and learning a bit about that. And part of that workshop, though, it was kind of fun because I got to see a friend who, her and her husband run a gym in town here, one of the CrossFit gyms, and Robin, Russ's wife, she has a nutrition company in Lethbridge here, and she came and, you know, just gave a little kind of spiel on nutrition, because, you know, I think that kind of works also with setting intentions and goals. And it was fun to hear her talk. And then one of the things, though, that one of the participants had kind of said, and when I first heard it, I was like, oh man, like you're gonna have a tough time, you know, because it was basically the comment was, or basically it's like they want to eat better, and part of eating better is that, you know, you need to, you know, cook your own food, most likely. That's like that change that needs to happen. And her comment was just that I hate to cook. And so, you know, when I heard that comment, I was just kind of like, holy cow, man, that's like, to me, that's like basically saying like, I don't want to like breathe, or like, you know, I don't want to, you know, survive, because that's like, you know, we need to cook our food, like we need to be part of that process, and we've lost it big time. But but then as I, you know, started getting over that thought and just thinking more as to like, where's that person, like where's that coming from, and maybe why she's saying that, and she did, and I think it was maybe, you know, time, kids, family, that kind of stuff, and it just, you know, it seems like a pain, and I get that, and so taking that and then thinking of how, you know, I could be with, you know, spending money, and, you know, where I've gotten myself into debt and financial trouble, it'd be like, so if I went to you know, someone to help me with debt and talk to me about debt, and then they say, yeah, you know, okay, here's how you do it, this is what you got to do, but then me saying, well, but
I hate saving money.
I hate saving money, right?
I mean, and you you work at City Hall, and you said you had a little workshop or a little seminar about that, and how surprised you were that only a few people showed up, and it was only women. You were the only guy, and you couldn't wrap your head around why there was not as much interest, because you know that pretty much everybody is in debt. But
well, I think I think all of us are in debt, and that's where, you know, you maybe find out through friends or how other people. It's interesting, money and the talks that surround it, and like, you know, all that kind of stuff too. So whether, you know, from people that have it and are really tight with it, or people that don't have it, spend it a lot, like it's just, there are just so many dynamics around money.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's crazy, and people's views on it.
Yeah.
That you can really learn a lot. And because, yeah, like, you know, there's a lot of people that just, they have debt, they know it's there, they're aware of it, but it's just like, oh yeah, no, whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
like, that's what we got like life insurance for. That's what, you know, all this other kind of stuff, right? It's just a way of life now. Like, I mean, it would be interesting to know like how many people are in debt, like, you know, out of the population, right? It'd be, yeah, like that kind of number. I mean,
Oh, in North America, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I would say like
Oh, yeah.
every second person.
yeah, oh, yeah, and I mean, that's where, because, yeah, like some people are even comfortable living in debt. Like I say,
Yeah.
like they take out a line of credits, or, you know, like they'll maybe have some credit cards, take out a line of credit, take a trip, right? And then, you know, start to pay that down, or if they don't even get it all paid down, take out another line of credit to like knock down that one. And
Yeah.
it's just like this constant, like wheel of trying to minimize, I guess, the interest that they're, you know, paying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, like I've had debt kind of surround me for probably, yeah, like 10 years now, and now I'm kind of at that point in my life where it's like, okay, like let's deal with this like once and for all, and you know, and whatever choices I got to make to make that happen, I'm like, let's get it done.
Yeah.
'Cause, I guess it's kind of even almost been like an elephant in the room in a way, you know, where I don't maybe, like I know it's there, but like I said earlier, I just haven't made like these adjustments in my daily routine that have obviously saved me money and have been working. That, it just never allowed me to really kind of see a change or anything like that. And so I think that goes hand in hand again with like training and nutrition, right? When people start putting in the work, but, you know, again, it's like, well, how much work are you putting into it, or, you know, or what's going on emotionally, all these things, right? And so when they don't see, you know, a change or a benefit like right away, then it's easy to just say, oh, well, screw it, and you know, just go back to old ways or whatever, right? And that's, again, I think that's like these parts in our brain where our brain is getting the best of us. So kind of like that participant at that workshop where made that comment, it's just, you know, if you pulled yourself from outside of yourself and looked and heard that comment, you know, I think it would really, you know, maybe some part of you would say, well, that's, you know, maybe that's what got me here right now in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So, but that is a very hard thing for people to do, and like, again, take themselves away from their thoughts and look from the outside in.
Oh yeah, because you need space and quietness, calmness around you in order to do so. And most people don't have that, don't allow themselves to reflect, and they are just in this rat race. What do you think shapes people into how they spend the money? So your money spending habits, where do you think is it shaped? Because when I think of my brother, we are extreme opposites on how we spent money, how we dealt with money when we were young, and I think to this day we are still very different. So I think, the household we grow up in shapes how we see money, but then I don't know how to explain why my brother and I are so different. And I mean, you and your brother are very different too, no? Maybe not.
We are different to a degree, but we do have some similarities too. Like, so going back to, you know, probably one of the first times I was talking on your show, like, you know, my family, I came from a family where financially we were good. My dad, you know, he worked a lot. He owned his own business. He made that sacrifice to give us a lot of the opportunities that we have had in our life and still, you know, do at times. And he always kind of put something out there though too, where it was, if you want to spend more, then you're going to have to work more. So that's like, it's kind of like these simple little answers to like your choices in life, right? So, but I think on our side though too, we wanna work less and make more kind of thing too, or like when it comes to spending, like here it's like people, because especially if you don't enjoy your job, people don't want to, I guess if you enjoy your job and you're good with that, then I guess you can work a lot and make a lot, right? But that comment to me would be like, nah, I can't do it, right? Like I'm not gonna go, and after I work 5 days a week, go and work another job on the weekends or things like that. So, it's kind of been a tough lesson and things like that, because, my job, it's, I have a steady job at the city and things like that, but, it's when you got a house and you got all these payments and all these bills, right? And banks and credit cards, I mean, they don't really care, right? Because they're banking on your interest, no pun intended.
Yes.
So like, but going back, sorry, to the question, like, I kind of like in my household, there were things where, because my dad, he could afford, nice things, and he took me to really nice clothing stores and things like that, right? And I kind of got to appreciate that feeling of buying something that was really
quality,
high quality, right, or something like really good, or new and stuff like that. So but now I'm starting to see like where I don't feel like that is kind of what makes me, is just because there was a big chunk of my life too where I was buying very expensive clothes. I even had an account, and it's even almost embarrassing that like I had like it was high, and then I had to pay that down, and it took me like forever. And I know my friend that owned the store, he was very probably patient with me or whatever, right? But because at the end of the day, I really probably had no business like buying those kind of clothes or things like that, given the money I was making. But I felt like I could, and it was like I needed to like dress well and be that person, and so it kind of like got me into a little bit of trouble there. And then now it's starting to just kind of pick and choose, and my wardrobe probably gets trimmed down quite a lot. Like I have a lot less going on, because I look at all those things, and when you buy those things, it's that instant kind of like feeling of dopamine, like good feeling, right?
Yes.
And you're just like
dopamine.
Feels good, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, maybe 6 months later, you look in your closet and you maybe wore that thing once or twice, right?
Yeah.
And then and then you sit there, and then you're like, okay. And then a lot of people would say, well, I can turn around and sell it on like Facebook or Kijiji or all these things. And it's hard to sell those things because
people want them new.
Well, people either want them new, or like if it's good quality, and you're like, okay, well, I don't like, you're not going to practically give it away, but it's, and of course the sizing, because like for instance, I had a few suits, right, that I haven't worn in forever, and I put them out there, and again, because your body, it's hard to find that one person, right, that fits that. So the one thing that I'm just thinking of is like donating them to, I think there's some kind of causes or something that I've heard where you can donate your suits, and give them away as that. So I'm probably just do that, and then at least I maybe feel a little bit good about that they're going to someone who can afford a suit, right? And they'll feel way more like gratitude towards putting that on, probably than I did when I even had the money to buy it, right? So
but it's interesting how you explained that gut feeling you had when you signed the mortgage and stuff. And then just now I could also feel when you said donating it, you had that good feeling. And it's so interesting when you start observing how you feel about certain actions that you do, that this is your gut feeling that is actually guiding you to better places, right? And or not so good places if you decide not to
Oh yeah.
Not to
Oh yeah.
follow it, because I know that
is like our second brain.
yeah, but we also so often I hear people, oh, I had like the worst gut feeling, but I did it anyways, and now I regret it. I never heard a person say, oh, I followed my gut feeling, and now I'm like in trouble.
Yeah.
Never.
No. Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
always right, but
Yeah.
we unlearn to listen to it,
Mhm.
and I find it
We let
super.
the mind kind of overtake. And, yeah.
Well, the mind and emotions, or the need to belong, or the need to be someone in society, and it's hard. It's hard because the worst thing for a human being is feeling isolated.
Yeah.
So we do these things, and yeah.
Yeah, I think, and just being kind of part of the rat race, sort of thing, and that's where, you got your mortgage, your vehicles, your, all these things, right? And at the end of the day, they're comforting for sure. I'm not going to deny that. There is like a feeling of, that it just, you're living good and all that. But I remember reading a book called Anti-Fragile, and I think we really kind of take certain things for granted, and the fact that, again, going back to, I have a lot of friends that have been in the oil and gas industry, or even know people that are in there, and those guys, they're definitely the kind that like to live out, the life of being, in the oil and gas and making all the money and all this and that. But then all of a sudden, when, let's say, governments change or policy, these types of things, and, you got guys getting laid off, and you got these huge mortgages, all these toys, all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, that like even scares me thinking about that, and I don't even maybe have like a fraction of the debt that those guys have, and that's where you hear about like suicides, all that kind of stuff, because
Horrible.
and it sucks because we've been kind of sort of led to, that money can be power. Money can give us, this feeling of empowerment, and I'm learning more and more that it doesn't give me any other status. It doesn't give me any, it doesn't really, I guess can provide me with what I need, and that's food and clothing and a roof over my head.
Yeah.
But, outside of that, like how people perceive me or things like that, it's, money can be such a hard lesson, I think, to learn.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I think it really, because same thing too, I think, when I talked about my perception and how I made the mistake of perceiving love as like, it's the act of sex and things like that, it's the same thing with money too.
Yeah.
Like I've seen that, right? Like where, money provides security, or, and toy and like, gifts and all these things, but it doesn't, well, like money can't buy you love, right? And I think that's like an old saying that's very true, right?
Yeah.
And again, we live in a day and age where, if you don't have the vehicle, or if you can't, buy the expensive ring, things like that, like where it's like a lot of things are based off of finance, right? And,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's easy to get caught up in it. It's really easy to get caught up in it.
Oh yeah, and when it comes to relationships, same thing. Yeah, if you
Oh, yeah,
date
sorry.
someone who expects this from you,
Yeah.
and you are able to give it to that person in that moment, then wonderful. But then, as you said, if you get laid off, and you're like from being a super rich house owner, you turn into a little rat on the street.
Yeah.
It destroys not only your ego, but then the relationship, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny too with a lot of things that we buy now, like especially bigger purchases like vehicles and houses and that kind of stuff, where insurance is all over everything now too, right?
Yes.
Because it's like, well, what happens if you lose your job, right? What happens if you get injured or something, like all these things, right? Like who's gonna make those payments and stuff? And it's funny because anytime I've had that question, it's just like, no, like, don't need it, right? Like,
Yeah.
because I got a secure job, I'm gonna be fine, right?
Yeah.
And I always would just be like, no, don't even like give me the spiel, right?
Yeah.
And you just like don't even care, right? It's just
Mhm.
kind of like, in a way, it's a little bit of reckless spending. But I mean, obviously, yeah, people that have families, people, like you need a big house, you need this kind of stuff, right? I guess, I see that. An interesting thing is that, I had my house rented out, and it was to an immigrant family, and it's a 4-bedroom house. It's just a basic like 50s bungalow, right? Nothing fancy or major, and they had 7 people living in that house. So it was Saeed and Shima, and and their 4 kids, right? And yeah, it was like, or sorry, 5 kids. Quick math. But yeah, so
I
5
just
kids.
thought
They
2
were,
wives.
Well, they were actually,
Fine.
well, and then when they moved out, and they were great tenants.
Oh
and,
my
and,
God!
and,
I
yeah.
know your house in and
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
and they left it in a
Yeah.
in a brilliant
Oh yeah, and
way. Yeah.
and they were expecting like their 6th child, and and so, I mean, us here, we would think, oh my God, right? Because like the house is maybe 1,000 square feet on the upstairs, right? And then so go down and you got a little less because you just got like your furnace room and
I
washer
know.
dryer, right? And
Mhm.
but they were happy. Like anytime I went over there to see them, which I mean it wasn't often, but they were just always very welcoming. That it was like, yeah, I enjoyed going over there and just seeing them and how they were living in the house and enjoying it. And whereas, yeah, like most people here would be like, I need my own space. Like, I need to get away. I need to like, yeah, distance myself from my family. Like,
Yes.
even though we're all under the same roof, it's like, I'm gonna go crazy, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have to smile a lot right now because Jason and I will be traveling to Europe soon, and I know he will be. I mean, you've been there before,
like
but
18 years ago, so it's been a
18
while.
years ago, but we live on way smaller spaces, and you guys here in Canada, you don't even know how spoiled you are. Like, you have so much space, you have so much peace, you have so much of everything that, yeah, at times I can see how you start not appreciating it anymore
yeah.
because it's taken
Yeah.
for granted, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been a very interesting talk about that here,
Yeah.
and I'm really happy to see how you feel more and more, I don't know, happy or empowered to go down that new path of
Yeah.
watching your money and seeing how it goes, and then also reaping the
Reward from
the
it a bit.
reward
Oh, yeah.
from it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I can see that in reclaiming emotional power and feeling better with yourself. You don't need all that fanciness around
No,
because
I don't-
you
yeah, I
feel
wanna-
good
Yeah.
how you are.
Just trying to get that monkey off of my back.
Yes,
And,
yes, yes.
I'm sure my dad would be pretty excited for me when I do get it all figured out.
All
Yeah. But, because, yeah, he's kind of been like sort of my, he's been my dad in a lot of ways, and definitely when it comes to finances, because he's, yeah, been very successful with his money, right, and how he's gone about it. So, but yeah, and then it's funny because I think, big part of, the changes that I've been making and just staying that way has definitely been, since you've been in my life and the way that you, I've been able to live and, travel and kind of, see things, right, and experience life without, without kind of stressing too much about money. Like it's been very inspiring to me to want to understand that and figure out ways to do that for myself, and then and just how that is going to not only benefit me but benefit you and I and our relationship and what we're planning on doing. So
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful to hear. I know for me and my journey, it was a, do you say near-death experience?
Sure.
Close to death experience I had in 2014, and it made me realize that making memories,
Yeah.
having experiences is way
More valuable.
way more valuable than owning things.
Yeah.
At that time, I was traveling by myself with over luggage, like heavy
Right.
luggage, and it was so painful because I couldn't get rid of that stuff. And I realized I have too much stuff in my life. I have to shed it all and then see that I put my money into making memories and having experiences with people I love.
Yeah.
And having a job that fulfills me and makes me, that I'm able to pay my bills, but then also put money aside for these memories I want to make. It's been, we still have 10 minutes. It's been awesome to talk with you again, and that you've been so open, and I really enjoy that. Is there anything we can add? There was one question I wanted to address, but it's going to be totally off topic, the emotional shutdown, how people, when they are faced to, like with tricky situations, but I think I will save that one for the next episode. When it comes to mortgage, having a car, and if you had a friend sitting here and asking you, how can I get out of it? How can I do what you are doing? What would you advise him or her?
Well, I would just say, talk to people that that especially. So like right now, like my truck, and I've always just leased a vehicle because before, when I was financing a car, and here's again where I'm like, I wanted like a newer vehicle, right? But it was relatively used, so you'd go and you'd sign the financing at the dealership, and then you're making these big payments every month, right? And it's probably over, let's say, a 4-year term or whichever. Well, most of the time, I guess I get, I wouldn't say bored of something, but like, it's like, okay, this car, it's been really awesome, but then now I see something else that maybe better serves my purpose and what I need a vehicle for. So, it would change, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now you're stuck in this, financing this vehicle. But I mean, you can always trade it in or trade it across and do that, but again, you're going to end up maybe taking a hit or things like that. And I'm just lucky to have like a good friend of my brother's who, I always trust him, and I get my vehicles from him at Toyota there, and he's always kind of had my sort of best interest at hand too when I've gotten into vehicles, even though at times I probably push it anyways. But like, so I'll talk to him, I'll get some advice from him as to what I can do, what are my options, and then from there make a decision, right? So same thing with the house. I know some friends that own a lot of properties, not just their own, but even like rental properties or things like that, and or even friends that are realtors, right, that you can sort of pick their brains with. And it's kind of fun because the work that I'm in, I deal a lot with housing and bylaws, regulations, and all that stuff that come into play when houses are being sold. So it's kind of a nice thing that I can, trade information with them and help them too. But I would just say, you gotta look at. It's tough because you have to really look at the big picture. What are these things giving to you?
Yes.
And that's where I've gotten into trouble, is that I felt like I needed these things, or and sometimes it was even pressure from the outside, right? Where it's you need to be a grown up, right? And you need to own a house, and you need to just be that person now, right? And and then you start your family, you do all that kind of stuff, and I mean that's a whole nother long talk or whatever, but like how my life's kind of unfolded. But that's where now I look at it, and I'm 30, I'm going to be turning 36 in July, and it's, yeah, I don't know, I'm starting to, again, realize I can sort of start to become, I don't want to call myself a minimalist, but where, you know, I might, you know, transfer down into that world. Because I just, you know, when I look at, you know, my mortgage and the monthly payments on my vehicle, you know, like all these things, and at the end of the day, it's like, what's left at the end of, you know, every month when you run up all those numbers and stuff. It's like, man, you know, you have no business, like, you know, taking trips. And that was how I got myself into trouble, like, you know, probably like just over 5 years ago and things like that. It's like I wanted to take trips, right? I wanted to do those things because that's, you know, a big thing to me. Like when you talk about memories or whatever, just getting away from the norm, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's what everybody does. So,
yeah.
But yeah, okay, well, everyone does that, and everyone should be able to do that. But I guess at the same time, you know, how far into debt are you willing to go over that, or how much are you willing to risk, right? And that should almost be looked at the other way, right? Like, what are you willing to give up in order to make that happen? You know, it's like my dad said, right? Like, you want to spend more, then you got to work more.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, yeah, you got to look at it and think, yeah, where can you maybe cut out some fat, you know?
Yeah. Are you done?
Yeah.
My biggest advice would be, I mean, you kind of said that too, is look at the big picture, but don't be fixated on the idea that you have to own a house, you have to own a fancy car, because if it comes to love, you don't want to have someone who is only going to want to date you because of these things. And if it comes to your freedom and your life choices that you want to make in like long term, if you want to have a family or not, if you're not likely to have a family anytime soon, please don't buy a house, and don't let your pride kick in when it comes to paying rent, because so many people say, why should I help another person pay down their mortgage? Well, think about the flexibility you have. You can leave within 2 or 3 weeks and live in another city on another continent and not worry about having to sell a house or anything. You don't own the house, so you don't have to have troubles with, I don't know, all kinds of stuff that can break down. So really, it's a life decision that you make when you buy a house, and think about it thoroughly.
It's and like say, it's a life decision, and I think the hard thing, you know, is that sometimes can get perceived as like talking crazy, you know, and stuff like that, right? Where, and that's how I, again, just like appreciate the way that you speak with me, and the honesty and the truth there, that probably sometimes actually scares me, because I'm just like, holy shit, right? Like, you know, she really say that, and like, it's, you know, and it's just, and you're 100% honest too, right? And I'm just like,
yeah,
man, like, maybe we can do that, right? And so, you know, it's these dreams and thoughts that we have that I start to, like, yeah, open up my mind to it and stop being so closed off by, you know, the crap that I've built up around me, you know, and feeling, you know, trapped in and that kind of stuff. So it's been fun, and it's just the start, and we'll see where it takes us, right?
Well, and I think that's the benefits of having a cross-cultural relationship, is that you have to force yourself to be curious. You have to force yourself to not make assumptions, and you have to be open for new approaches of basic life, things and life in general,
life,
right?
And those are the things that are the hardest changes, and it's funny because they're the basic day-to-day things, and, and we can just distract ourselves by all the material stuff, all the outside things, right? And then it just clouds us, and we can't see that, you know, really there's a lot of things that are possible, right? It's like when I think of, you know, getting rid of my truck and driving, you know, drive the nice farm truck that we got, you know, and just who cares, right? Like,
who cares?
It gets me from point A to point B, and like, And then have money, to put towards other things, and then even look at potentially selling my house and making that the next step, and and see where we go from there.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Oh yeah.
So thank you so much for listening today. I hope you feel inspired, enriched, or had a little laugh with us. I will be back here next week on Friday at 6:30. And thank you so much for taking the time and coming here. And it was really good. And you guys have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.